is perhaps one of the most overused and misunderstood parables Jesus taught. If you read all the interpretations over the ages, they've often tried to make Jesus say something he did not say. Namely, they did want him to say that he wants crass sinners to be identified in the church as weeds among the wheat, the righteous believers. And that's simply not what he was saying. However, over the years, there have been people who have been firmly committed to at least identifying the crass sinners, because Jesus won't let us throw them out. There have been those in the church who believe with all of their hearts that they have been appointed to be God's sin police. And they run about the church like detectives, trying to find sinners and unveiling them for who they are. And they do this with good intentions. They believe that such crass sinners must never be given safe harbor in the church, and that anyone who is allowed to go on living this way will certainly become an unbeliever and end up in eternity in hell. This mode of operation has done great damage to the church. And by the word church, I don't just mean the Lutheran Church. I mean the Holy Catholic Church on earth. As I talk to people who no longer attend worship anywhere, I discover a similar pattern to their story, why they stopped worshiping God with their fellow believers. When someone says to me, I used to go to church, I invariably ask the question, would you mind if I asked why you stopped coming? And I hear two opposite and connected reasons that kind of rise to the top. One is because that person was treated badly by someone in the church. And the other is because some highly respected person fell off his pedestal and revealed to them that he was a sinner too. Now, usually a person who has been treated badly receives his treatment in the form of being judged and shamed because of his sin. One person told me a story about being shamed for wearing clothing that was deemed inappropriate to church. I think she had on flip-flops instead of dress shoes. Another person told me about how his family told him that his being gay embarrassed them and he should go to a gay church. Another person told me that the pastor came to her and told her that she would be welcome at church when she was ready to marry the man with whom she was fornicating. See, people being who they are, when you shame them and embarrass them, they leave. So what has the sin police, who has unveiled this sinner among the people of the congregation, what has he accomplished? Ensuring that another soul burns in hell? Or at the very least, ensuring that we've isolated and abandoned another struggling sinner? The second reason that people tend to leave is because someone in the congregation, usually a leader, often the pastor, does something or says something that causes him to fall off his pedestal. And people see this person they respected and revered as a sinner, just like them. I got a news flash for you. All people are sinners. Every single person on earth is tempted. When you show respect for me, it's not for me. It's for the office I bear. That's why I wear these robes, to cover me up and to emphasize the office I bear. That's why I wear the clerical collar, to cover me up and emphasize the office I bear. Because I am a fallible human being. But the office to which I have been called is to stand in the place of Christ on earth by his authority. But if I fall, It is I who fall, and not Christ. Pastors and leaders in the church, they come and go. But Christ is eternal. All of this is to say that the church is rife with sinners. But that is not to say that the church is rife with unbelievers. Jesus assures us that unbelievers will be among us. There are weeds that have been sown in the midst of the wheat. But when Jesus explains his parable to his disciples, he is very clear. The field in which both weeds and wheat have been sown is the world, not the church. The Holy Catholic Church is the holy family of God on this earth. Sinners, to be sure. Or else we'd have no need for Jesus, would we? Sinners, to be sure, but righteous nevertheless. There is a possibility that there could be a hypocrite living among us, a weed in wheat's clothing, but that is a rarity. And remember, a hypocrite is not someone who says one thing and does another. That's the way we use the term so often, but that's incorrect. Because that describes every single human being on this earth. None of us is perfect at living exactly what we say. A hypocrite, as defined in the Bible, is a person who pretends to have faith in Christ, but does not. Now that person's a rare bird. Why would an unbeliever pretend to be a believer? Especially today, where unbelief is the norm. In Jesus' time, maybe it was more common, but today, why would an unbeliever want to be associated with those weird, weak-minded Christians? Sadly, in this nation, the weeds are winning. The reality is that here and throughout our nation, the footprint of Christianity is becoming smaller. And it seems like there are two different strategies that are being pushed forward to address this problem, both of which, by the way, are dead wrong. One strategy is to start acting more like the weeds. Make Christianity more like secular humanity so that no one will be offended and no one will be challenged by what we believe or how we worship. Just kind of blend into the woodwork and don't cause a stir. That's not our calling. Jesus is very clear that we will be persecuted if we're following him. We will struggle to be salt and light in a bland, dark world. And while there may be some good days and some bad days, all in all, in the time of the church, it's tough to be a Christian. The other mistake is to try to do what Jesus talked about in this parable, and that is to uproot the weeds. I mean, there are some Christians who are absolutely on attack mode against agnostics and secularists and Muslims and even other Christians who are somehow not living up to what they deem an appropriate amount of holiness. But Jesus warns us in this parable that trying to uproot the weeds before the day of the harvest may do likewise to the wheat around it. So rather, we feed and water the weeds right alongside the wheat, with absolute confidence that on the last day, Jesus will send his angels to sort it all out for us. We are called to sow the seed. We are called to feed and to water. We are never called to determine who is a weed and who is wheat and try to separate the two. Will my Uncle Francis, who never goes to church and has lived an absolutely debaucherous life, go to heaven, Pastor? If he's wheat, yes. If he's a weed, no. and I am neither equipped nor called to tell the difference. So guess what? I'm going to keep on feeding and watering Uncle Francis, just like I do everyone else. I'm going to keep inviting them to worship. I'm going to keep inviting them to receive the Holy Supper. I'm even going to take it to him if he can't get here on his own, because we are called to feed and to water, never to judge. We proclaim God's law in all of its bitterness, because the law is truth. But I proclaim my expectations to my children as well. And yet, when they fail to live up to my expectations, I don't for a moment quit loving them. Just like God. He proclaims his law to us, that which he expects us to do, and that which he expects us not to do. And when we fail to meet his expectations, as we always will, he never for a moment stops loving us. He continues to love us and provide for us. So, we never for a moment seek forcefully to remove the weeds from the community, lest we tear out the wheat for the sake of the weeds. We're the wheat. We have to know what we're called to do as wheat. We're called to plant. We're called to feed. We're called to water. And we do so for all who will receive us. And we let God sort out the weeds, because that's his job. We don't do a good job at it, and we don't want it.